Here comes the pulse point question of this week. Who granted organizations like PETA and social media influencers the liberty to attack India's dairy sector with baseless, unscientific claims, risking the livelihoods of 10 crore farmers and undermining a century of trust? Whom do you think is responsible? The real issue isn't dairy sector weakness, but weak regulatory actions. Bodies like FSSAI or ASCI have failed to tackle misleading vegan labels and emotive billboards. When Amul pushed back, escalating the matter to PM Modi, it exposed deeper policy gaps and unchecked activist narratives. On June 1, 2021, Amul Vice Chairman Valamji Hambal urged a PETA ban, calling its vegan push a foreign conspiracy, hurting 10 crore farmers and India's GDP. Earlier, Dr. R.S. Sodhi publicly questioned who would fund farmers' children's education if vegan milks, described as expensive, lab-made, genetically modified and replacing dairy. Their resistance highlights the urgent need for policy safeguards, not just to defend dairy, but to protect rural livelihoods from global corporate interests.
And keeping it with Karnataka, it's a move that could stir political and regional controversy as the Bengaluru Metro Rail Corporation has given the green signal for Amul Kiosks to be set up at 10 major metro stations in the city, including Majestic, Indiranagar, Trinity and Jayanagar. The decision has sparked sharp criticism from pro-Kannada groups and political opponents who questioned why Gujarat-based Amul was chosen over Karnataka's own Nandini, run by the Karnataka Milk Federation. Now, Deputy Chief Minister of the state, D.K. Shivakumar, has defended the move, saying that a public tender was floated and Nandini did not participate in it. He also said that the kiosk space would be allotted to KMF if they came forward. BMRCL meanwhile clarified that it was part of a non-fair revenue model to increase metro income. 7 lakh rupees per month tender for 5 years was awarded to Amul after a transparent bidding process, what they're saying. The 10 stations where Amul kiosks will continue to come up include Pattandur Agrahara, Indiranagar, Bayappanahalli, Trinity, Majestic, National College and Jayanagar among others. However, political backlash continues. BJP MP PC Mohan had tweeted about the matter. He said, and I quote, ahead of the 2023 Karnataka Assembly elections, Congress falsely accused the BJP of favouring outsiders. But now, the same Congress government has enabled Amul kiosks at 10 metro stations to displace Nandini. A classic case of hypocrisy, he said. BMRCL says Nandini outlets at MG Road and Mahalakshmi layout were closed earlier due to operational reasons and only one outlet at Vijayanagar remains. They reiterated that if Nandini participates in future tenders, they are welcome. Meanwhile, several Kannada groups have warned of protests if Amul kiosks go ahead inside metro stations, escalating what is now both a commercial and a cultural flashpoint.
And the Supreme Court has set a 3-month deadline for the centre to implement food safety norms that make it mandatory to display key information about packaged food items on containers. Back in 2014, the FSSAI had approved a proposal to display nutritional information, including total sugar, salt and saturated fat in bold letters and prominent font size on labels of packaged food items. Asking a pertinent question, the bench of Justices J.B. Pardiwala and R. Mahadevan asked if those in the courtroom had grandchildren, further highlighting that Kurkure and Maggi packets have no information on them. And the Supreme Court has set a 3-month deadline for the centre to implement food safety norms that make it mandatory to display key information about packaged food items on containers. Back in 2014, the FSSAI had approved a proposal to display nutritional information, including total sugar, salt and saturated fat in bold letters and prominent font size on labels of packaged food items. Asking a pertinent question, the bench of Justices J.B. Pardiwala and R. Mahadevan asked if those in the courtroom had grandchildren, further highlighting that Kurkure and Maggi packets have no information on them.
Dairy is a big play for us. We've made very good progress with milkshakes and milk drinks. Not as much progress with cheese. Cheese has been growing, but small single digit. So we want that to move to the next level.
How do you define the next level? Because 2 years ago I asked you, where do you see the adjacencies business? You said 3 years later it will be 35%, 5 years later it will be 40-45%, and 10 years later you imagine a scenario where it is 50%. So 2 years hence, it's still at 25%. So 1 year later, will it be 35%?
Well, I hope so. Not 1 year, but maybe 2 years. Maybe we are running behind our schedule. But 2 years later, certainly. But, it should not come at the cost of biscuits.
Yes.
That's the main criteria.
Earlier conference call as well, you said volume per outlet, VPO.
See, volume per outlet is very important, right? So we've got two clear, things that we measure. One is volume per outlet. Second is covering areas which we haven't covered till now. And there are many small villages which we don't get to directly. So we'll work at both ends.
Could you give us some quantifiable targets for that over the next couple of years?
So our distribution targets, we will, increase our distribution by at least 100,000 outlets every year.
Got it.
On an overall basis, our volume per outlet should remain stable, right? Despite going to much smaller towns and smaller villages, which means that the volume per outlet needs to increase in urban areas. In terms of the SKUs that we sell in urban areas, we sell about 9 SKUs per outlet. Right? Now that needs to go up by at least 10%. So that 9 needs to move to 10, right? Now what would that mean? That would mean that we are selling more categories, more SKUs into each outlet that we go to. So that's how we define our target.
Precision Fermentation 101. It helps to understand precision fermentation when compared to other fermentation methods. They're traditional, biomass, and precision. Precision fermentation is the process of inserting DNA that encodes dairy proteins precisely into the microflora. The instructed microflora are then fed sugar and water in a fermenter where they convert it to nature-identical dairy proteins. The proteins are then filtered out from the microflora with end products containing only dairy proteins that are nature-identical. And this is only the beginning. Sticking to our core mission of harmonizing nature with science, precision fermentation technology will provide you with cultured dairy products that are just like regular dairy staples. Same taste, aroma, versatility, and are lactose and cholesterol free. Creating limitless possibilities together.
Rabobank's Quarter 2 2025 Global Dairy Quarterly, too good to be true, warns of rising downside risk for global dairy in second half of 2025. While strong branding by major producers, New Zealand, Australia, the EU, South America and the US has kept prices steady, surging output and faltering demand may soon weigh on markets. After a modest 0.5% year-on-year growth in Quarter 1, production rose to 1.1% in Quarter 2 and is forecasted to hit 1.4% in Quarter 3, the largest rise since 2021. Record high Oceania prices like Fonterra's New Zealand dollar 10 per kg of milk solids forecast must weak demand signals from China and the US, where consumer sentiment and food service spending are under pressure. Trade disruptions and tariff unpredictability add to uncertainty. Rabobank expects not a crash but a measured market correction. Industry insight tells a cool down is coming. Dairy leaders must now focus on component-led value, margin efficiency, and market diversification to navigate this shift.
How fresh is the milk that you drank this morning? Napolac milk is fresh and natural. How can we convince people that Napolac milk is fresher and more natural? Well, make them milk it themselves. We've combined an application with a specially designed milk container and brought it to the supermarkets so that the consumers can actually interact with it. The app asks you to milk a cow. People seem to enjoy it. In the end, Something magical happened. It was about time, right? People drank the milk that they milked themselves, proving that Napolac is indeed a brand that produces fresh and natural milk. More than 300 interactions per day, with an average time of 1 minute and 30 seconds for each interaction. A social reach of 50% of the entire Romanian Facebook universe.